Hello everyone, this is Kikoto Mane from Team Get Rec Robotics, as well as a member of Team WPI, and welcome to the Build Process, a series where I go over the process of building a combat robot from beginning to end. For this episode, we'll be rebuilding my plastic Antweight Gyro-Walker named Bird Strike. Now there's a lot to talk about with this robot. As I just mentioned, Bird Strike is a plastic Antweight. The plastic Antweight class is very similar to the regular Antweight class, mostly in that both weight classes are for 1 pound bots. However, the biggest difference is that you're only allowed to use 3D printed plastic in the plastic Antweight class. Metal parts are not allowed. Plastic Antweights are usually a really good weight class for beginners to get into, since you don't need to worry about machining metal parts and you can just 3D print everything, which has the additional benefit of making things relatively cheaper. That's why the WPI Combat Robotics Club regularly hosts plastic Antweight competitions between its members, as it's a great way to improve your robot building skills in a more relaxed environment. The first time I ever competed in one of these club competitions, it actually wasn't with Bird Strike. Instead, I teamed up with one of my friends to build a robot called Anime Protagonist, a very unstable overhead bar spinner. Anime Protagonist was actually my first time ever building a spinner, and needless to say, the bot had some issues, and while it's funny to watch, Anime Protagonist just never worked as intended and was retired after its first and only competition. The next time we competed at a WPI Plastic Ant event, my friend and I decided to do something a little bit different. This time, my friend went ahead and designed a beautiful asymmetrical weapon blade that would hopefully hit with a ton of force. Initially, we were just going to put that blade on a standard 2-wheel drive horizontal spinner. However, during the design process, I had the idea to change the design to something a little more interesting, a torque reaction gyro-walker. For those who don't know, a torque reaction gyro-walker is a unique type of robot that doesn't have wheels. Instead, these kinds of bots feature large weapon blades, and they move by controlling the speed of those weapons and utilizing their gyro in order to translate. Gyro-walkers like this have been getting more popular in recent years, with the most famous example being the Beetleweight Droopy, a world champion that is considered to be one of the best 3-pound bots in the world. The benefit of making a robot a walker is the fact that most competitions offer a weight bonus to bots that don't use wheels and have non-traditional locomotion. These kinds of weight bonuses can vary from competition to competition, but at least for the WPI Plastic Ant events, we offer a 50% weight bonus to walkers, meaning a gyro walker could weigh 1.5 pounds instead of just 1 pound like normal ant weights. And so, my friend and I would go on to use the blade design for a new torque reaction gyro walker, and that's how Bird Strike was born. Bird Strike has been competing in the WPI Plastic Ant competition since November of 2022. And it's never been the most competitive robot, only ever winning a handful of fights, but it's just so much fun to fight with due to its chaotic nature and a destructive power behind the weapons. Whether it wins or loses, Bird Strike never fails to put on some entertaining fights, and that's why I'm happy to have it compete in T-Town Beatdown on August 3rd in Tennessee, which will be Bird Strike's first time ever competing in an open competition instead of just the WPI Club events. Alright, so here's the CAD model for Bird Strike. It's actually a pretty simple design. Let's just go through each of the pieces one by one, I guess, just to really talk about them. So I guess we should start with the main body, since that's what everything fits onto. And as you can see, the main body is just one piece of solid PLA plus plastic. Not a lot going on here. I do have the little mount for the switch goes, but aside from that, it's pretty plain. Since there isn't a lot we need to worry about because there's no drive motors, we don't need to worry about that. And I know all the electronics fit in there from the other times I've built this robot. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's basically the same part it's been since the beginning of Bird Strike. Bird Strike in general hasn't gone through a lot of design changes. It's been mostly the same robot. Going back to the full assembly, we have the cover, which will cover everything. There's the little switch there. And going back to the cover real quick, it's actually kind of unique. Like the blades, my friend was the one who designed it. And so the cover actually just clicks into place. It's kind of hard to show until I have the physical things, but yeah, it doesn't have any screw holes. It just slips on and clicks right into place, and actually works out a lot better than you'd initially think. And just another aspect of Bird Strike that I really like design wise. All right, and now, of course, we got to talk about the most important thing, the weapon blade, since that's how the robot attacks and how it moves. The way they mount is nothing very difficult. They're just attached directly onto the weapon motors, like just right on there. Nothing, no belts or anything, just direct drive right onto the weapon motors. Looking closer at the Bird Strike blades, they're about half an inch thick. They're half an inch thick. They actually used to be thicker for like the very first version, but me and my friend realized that it was pretty much overkill and way unnecessary. So we just put that way into other places and reduced it to just half inch, but that's still more than enough. So yeah, half inch blades that are about almost 6.4 inches long. So they're pretty big blades, and we got 2 of them. So that one makes it so much fun. So yeah, again, really like the weapon blades on Bird Strike. Probably the best part of the entire robot. And so as I mentioned before, they just attach directly to the motors, and the motors themselves attach onto these aluminum braces, which in turn attach to the main body of the robot. So that's how everything attaches to each other. So yeah, again, like most of my robots, Bird Strike is actually really simple when you break it down, but the bot has still come together way better than I ever thought initially would. And so yeah, I'm very excited to rebuild it for this new competition. And with that, let's get into more of the build. Something I almost forgot to mention is that I went ahead and emailed the event organizers of T-Town Beatdown and asked them for clarification on what kind of weight bonus Bird Strike was allowed to get for this event. They said that for their event, anything that didn't have wheels and wasn't a shuffler would get a 100% weight bonus, which means Bird Strike can weigh up to 2 pounds if I really want to. All right, now let's take a look at the parts we'll be using. The most important thing to look at first are the weapon motors, because not only is that how Bird Strike attacks, but that's how it moves. Bird Strike needs the weapon spinning in order to move, so the weapon motors are absolutely the most important part. Now, Bird Strike has always used these very basic A2212 1400 kV brushless motors. These are very basic motors you can buy off Amazon for cheap in bulk. And for the WPI Club, these are the very same motors that we use in our plastic Antweight competitions. They're just standard for you to use when you're making a plastic Antweight. And yeah, these are probably the simplest kind of brushless motors you could ever use in an Antweight. Many bots use them, and they get the job done. As you can see, so this is how I mount them to Bird Strike. The motor comes with these little braces. As you can see, the motor itself is attached to the brace, and the brace, I attach that to the main body of Bird Strike using these holes right here. So yeah, again, I've used this motor a bunch. It's fine, but I decided to switch to something a little bit better. A lot of you probably know a guy named Peter Garnash. He's the founder of Repeat Robotics, and he's made some very quality products for robot combat. And he actually saw Bird Strike once, and he DM'd me saying, hey, I could sponsor your robot and give you some motors that are twice as powerful. And I was like, sure. And so, yeah, he sent me these. These are the Repeat Robotics Evo 2822 brushless motors, and they're great. I actually used one in Esper, and even though Esper didn't work that well, the thing that worked the most was the weapon motor. Weapon motor never stopped spinning, and it was totally fine. So hopefully these motors will not only pack more power, which is great, like Bird Strike is meant to hit as hard as possible, but hopefully be a little bit more durable, because the previous motors, like, they were fine, but sometimes the magnets would shatter, which makes sense considering how hard Bird Strike hits. So I'm hoping that these ones can be a little bit more durable while also being more powerful. Real quick, though, I want to mention, they do not come with these braces. I'm reusing these braces from the other motors. These motors do not come with those braces. I'm just reusing them. And that's how I'm going to be attaching it to Bird Strike. So I don't need to change anything about the design. I can just attach them the exact same way I did the other motors. And yeah, once again, shout out to Peter Garnash for giving these to me for free. I really appreciate it. Now, next, of course, we need ESCs to drive those motors. So just going to be using these brushless 20 amp reversible ESCs from Fingertech Robotics. I've used these a lot in a lot of my robots for brushless drive and brushless spinning weapons and so on. And I've heard mixed things on them, but I've never really had much real problem with them. And like, I'm sure there's better ESCs out there, but I just have a bunch of these from some of my other bots, so I might as well reuse them. But yeah, I've never had any real problem with them. They get the job done, so that's what we'll be using here. Of course, we need a BEC, a 5-volt regulator, just to properly power everything. Again, nothing fancy here, just a very basic BEC. And yeah, that's what we'll be using. For the battery, we'll be using a FreeS 450 mAh battery, as you can see here. And for the receiver, so I have this Hobby King receiver, but that's mostly a stand-in. For Bird Strike, I'm going to be using my Radio Master controller that I got recently. However, I need to buy a new receiver for that, and I don't have the receiver yet. The receiver, I bought it, but it hasn't gotten shipped yet. I'm still waiting on that. So until I get that, I'm just going to be using this Hobby King receiver as just a stand-in until I get that. So I'll just be putting it here. It's also going to be nice just to have something to reference the weight. And that's mostly it for the electronics. So let's weigh all this and go from there. All right, let's start weighing everything. First up are 2 weapon motors. Okay, 94 grams, that's pretty good. The receiver, again, that's just a stand-in for the Radio Master receiver, but I'm sure it's gonna weigh mostly the same, so it's not that big of a deal. The ESCs, the battery, and the BEC. And that's about 176 grams. And again, for context, since Bird Strike can weigh up to 2 pounds, that means it can weigh up to, I think, 907 grams, what that translates to. So we got plenty of weight to work with, which is good because everything else is going to be heavy. The weapons are going to be heavy. The body's going to be heavy. So it's just good that we have a lot of weight left over thanks to that weight bonus for walkers. Speaking of, let's get into all the other stuff for Bird Strike, specifically the stuff we're going to print. Okay, so here's all of the parts we're going to print in the CAD software. Real quick, I want to clarify, I'm not actually going to print all of this all at once. You usually shouldn't do that because if you do it, then it's more likely to lose more stuff if a print fails. I'm going to print the body, then each of the blades, then the cover. I just have them all here now just to, represent how much everything's going to weigh. So yeah, again, I am not going to print all of this all at once. But yeah, you can see the total time would be about 2 days, which makes sense because it's just 100% infill. Everything is going to be 100% infill, PLA plus, since we have to wait for it. I've always had the weapons at 100% infill anyways, just because that's kind of standard practice. When you make a plant weapon, you want to be as sturdy and as hard as possible. So yeah, the weapons have always been 100% infill. But now I have to wait for it. I've made the body and the cover 100% infill too, just because. I don't see any reason not to if we have to wait for it. So yeah, in total, weigh about 534 grams, all of this. And adding that with the electrons we just weighed, we should definitely be good on the weight limit since we can weigh up to 2 pounds in this case. We might not even need to reach that weight, but we can weigh up to that weight limit. So yeah, this is how all the parts look. And yeah, we can start printing them and see how they turn out. Okay, fortunately, the PLA Plus parts have finally finished printing. Let's take a look at them now. Of course, we got to start off with the weapon blades, the bird-shaped weapon blades for Bird Strike. I've always loved the shape of these blades. Again, my friend was the one who designed them, and she just did an amazing job with the geometry of these things. They are just so beautiful to me. And yeah, I really do love these blades, and they came out pretty well this time, so that's good. Of course, we got to attach the blades to something. So here's the main body of Bird Strike, just one solid piece. You'll notice on the underside where the supports were, and I tried my best to get them off as well as possible, but it looks a little bit, it's not the cleanest, but hey, that's good enough for me. And yeah, this seems nice, pretty good. And now we have the cover. I actually ran out of white PLA Plus when I printed all the other stuff, so I had to switch to black PLA Plus. But yeah, I like it. Again, came out pretty nice, and you can see, and now I can show you how it just, you just kind of clip it on to the main body. It just snaps into place. And yeah, I love this. This is pretty good. So yeah, really happy with how everything came out. It took a long time to print, but it was worth the wait. And now we can just attach the electronics and everything. Let's get to it. All right, I got all the electronics all together. Let's take a look. So I have the motors taped down for testing so they don't go anywhere. They're connected to the ESCs. The ESCs are wired together. The BEC is wired in there, plugged into the receiver, very simple. And we got the battery. So we're just gonna do a quick little test. Like always, I'm just gonna silently pray and hope really hard that this doesn't blow up. I've done this many times, but I'm always a little bit scared when I plug in a battery because you never know what could happen. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's a good sound. Nothing bad happened. Nothing exploded. So I think we're good. Gonna turn on the transmitter. Okay, we're gonna try one motor. Okay, that's good. We're gonna try the other motor. That's also good. We're gonna try both. Okay, everything seems to be fine. The motor spun up, nothing bad happened. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the electronics of Bird Strike. Good test. Oh, by the way, I forgot to show it off earlier, but I also have the switch wired up and ready to go. This is just a very standard FingerTech robotics switch. A lot of robots use this. And as you can see, I've already have it wired up, so I can just plug this directly into the pre-existing wiring setup. And I plug the battery in here. So yeah, obviously the switch, very simple. You just take an Allen key and you can, turn it on and off to stop the circuit and stop the robot. That's how switches work in general. And yeah, very simple switch setup. Most of my bots actually don't use switches. Usually I just have an opening where I can plug and unplug the battery manually. But for a robot like Bird Strike, that's very dangerous and its weapons cover a lot of area. I decided not to do that for safety reasons. So instead, I'm just gonna have this switch, and I have a hole in the top of the robot that I can just put an Allen key in, turn it on and off, and then we're good. So yeah, that's it for the switch. All right, so we've got almost everything attached. We've attached the motors and we've fit the electronics inside. So let's take a quick look. Here's a close look at how I mount the motors. Like I said, the motor's just attached to this aluminum brace, and they're screwed in through the main body. Here's the cover. Here's the electronics in there. I know it looks a little concerning, but the electronics are snug in there, and if I need to, I might zip tie some more stuff down. But yeah, overall, that's mostly Bird Strike. Now, just gonna double check to make sure everything's fine. Here is the hole for the switch. So I'm gonna quickly put the key in. Okay, we're gonna turn it. All right. Okay. Everything seems to be fine. All right. So now, of course, we got to put on the blades. So the way that I attach the blades are actually really simple. So what I do is I take this heat gun. This is the same heat gun I use for heat shrinking. And I use a heat gun to heat this middle portion of the weapons a little bit, just to get it slightly melted, like very slightly melted, so that I can then just slide it onto the motors themselves. And then the plastic will resolidify around the motors. And yeah, they usually hold on pretty well. So we're going to do that. It takes a while to do that, so I'm not going to show it. So let's just skip right to it being done. And just like that, the blades have been attached. And yeah, they seem to be all right. I've never had any problem attaching them like this. But yeah, as you can see, the weapons are just directly on the motors. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. The blades have been attached to Bird Strike. Bird Strike got those bird-shaped blades. Happy about that. And of course, to put the finishing touches on Bird Strike, we gotta do this. There you go. And yep, I got a pair of googly eyes. He is a happy little bird Gyro-Walker robot thingy. I love this thing so much. And now we're just gonna weigh everything once again. Here he goes. Okay, so 650 grams. That's about, I think that's about 1.5 pounds, which is good because as mentioned before, we could have weighed up to 2 pounds, but I'm not gonna really try to go for that because everything, like all the PLA stuff, it's already 100% infill. And I can't really think of any way to put more weight into this thing without redesigning everything. And besides, even though it gets 100% weight bonus at this specific competition, usually when it competes in the WPI Club plastic ant competitions, it only gets a 50% weight bonus. So it could only weigh about 1.5 pounds anyways. So at least if I keep it like this, it can compete both at that event and the WPI Club event. So I don't think it's necessary to add any more weight with this. So I'm pretty happy with this. So yeah, Bird Strike is basically done. I'm happy with it. And that marks the end of this video. Normally, I would do a spin-up test with the blades on, but unfortunately, I can't really do that right now since I'm currently living in the state of Georgia for the summer, which means I do not have access to the test box that belongs to the WPI Combat Robotics Club. Since there's no real way to test it safely, I'm just going to have to wait until I put Bird Strike in the arena at the competition before I can spin up the blades. But for now, Bird Strike is done, and I'm very excited to see how it does at its first ever open competition. With Flaky Boy and Bird Strike now done, that means the next bot we're going to rebuild for T-Town Beatdown is Esper. So be on the lookout for that video, hopefully coming soon. Also, I am very happy to say that the channel just recently reached 1,000 subscribers, and I'm just so amazed at all the love and support from you guys. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to know how much people enjoy watching my videos. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.